Doge uncovers more crazy spending as Mike Benz drops bombs on Rogan about what that spending is actually for. Trump talks about the U.S. controlling Gaza, gets the King of Jordan to consider admitting Palestinians, intimates Russia will be keeping some Ukrainian land, all while Hamas rejects Trump's Saturday deadline. Sam Altman threatens us with a good time, saying AI will improve by 300% annually. Plus, RFK gets confirmed, 20,000 new JFK files emerge. Nary a slow day in 2025, Drew.
Not nary a slow day in 2025.
Nary, man, I'm telling you.
Jumping right into it, Mike Benz was on Joe Rogan exposing the deep state that is U.S. aid. This is just getting darker and darker.
It's crazy.
Every covert action the CIA does has to be authorized by the president in what's called the presidential finding to take that covert action. So if the CIA senior leadership were just a rogue cell that's not even at the top of leadership, but just a rogue desk, a rogue portfolio, a rogue network, wants to run a covert action in a region, but they don't think the president will approve, or the president doesn't want to formally sign off on it in case it goes wrong, they can walk right over to U.S. aid, who can do the exact same thing the CIA does, except they can call it discrete democracy promotion because it's not technically an intelligence agency, so it's not technically covert action, so it doesn't require executive branch approval or foreknowledge, and they've gotten in trouble in these cases in some pretty incredible ways.
Crazy. So this seems like it's something out of a spy movie. Like, what is going on with U.S. aid?
Well, so what is going on with governments? This is where, what I'm trying to do and what I hope everybody's trying to do is get a map of how the world actually works. And the thing that I found most distressing, fascinating, however you want to think about it, from the Mike Benz on Rogan interview was he really breaks down that we are just moving how the dollars are spent through the system to hide from the American public. And so tying to my favorite book, The Machiavellians, you really begin to understand man is political animal. So governments want to influence other governments. Where this really gets tricky is when governments, in order to influence other governments, have to influence their own people. And that's what Mike Benz is saying is going on with US aid, is we are funneling, he had this quote, which I think is great. When something is too filthy for the CIA, give it to US aid. And that is terrifying. And the reason that works is you've got the CIA has very specific mandates. The CIA has historically gone through these massive scandals, and that has caused them to go, we need another outlet for this. Not we need to stop doing it, but we need to find another outlet for these dollars. And so they spin up the US aid organization and they give it way better sounding name. Now, the funny thing is AID doesn't stand for actual aid. It stands for something else. I forget. We should probably look it up. Otherwise, chat's going to go crazy. But it is the same idea as the CIA by another name. Not exclusively, and I'm sure that they also did things that really are positive, but United States Agency for International Development. Let's put development in quotes. So this is where you start cooing governments, where you're spending dollars to have influence on foreign countries. Now, the reality is that everybody does this. And that's why I'm saying this is how you want to map how the world actually works. So is Russia trying to influence the US? Of course they are. Is China trying to influence the US? Of course they are. How many countries are trying to do it? Probably a lot of them. But the US is certainly trying to influence other countries. And so as I was listening to Mike Benz talk, and I've got all of James Burnham's words echoing in my head about man is political animal, the quest for power, how you will always have an elite class because the masses are, now this is my interpretation, you'd probably get the heebie-jeebies hearing me say it like this, but you need to give the masses a simplified story that allows you to keep them basically calm and moving in the direction that you want them to move in order to keep the country powerful and safe. But there is this element of we are just trying to control our populace. We are trying to control the world's populace. And we are all, meaning every country is doing this, trying to control it to our advantage. Now, because America is so powerful, we are able to do this in ways that other countries are not. Okay, that's piece number one. Piece number two is that this is something Eric Weinstein has been talking about and I believe I'm quoting him accurately to say it's what he calls the Jessupification of either the world or of America. Do we have that tweet? Okay, here we go. It is literally the Jessupization, noun. This is him making this up, but noun, the transformation of a previously open, free society by actors within its governing class to one in which the electorate cannot be trusted with even a basic outline of what is happening and why via the abuse of need to know or sources and methods privileges. Okay, let me say that in simpler terms. Jessup, Colonel Jessup, is a fictional character out of the movie A Few Good Men. And in that movie, Jessup they finally break him down on the stand and he admits the thing. He says the quiet part out loud. And he says, the world is such a dangerous place that you need men like me on the wall who are willing to do whatever it takes, no matter how dark, no matter how sinister, no matter how gruesome, that you need men that are willing to do whatever it takes in order to keep America safe. And what he's saying is we're getting to that where people are doing really bad shit and we are hiding it by saying, this is information that needs to be secret, that you don't need to know all of this stuff, and turning America into that bully on the wall, as it were, who will do things even to its own people and saying you can't trust these people. They're not the experts. They're not all the things that we heard during COVID. Dis, malinformation. That's all this is, the populace being able to talk. And looking at it as the second piece of this puzzle, it is because we are living in an age where information is traveling at such high velocity and in such massive volume that if Burnham is right and you just will always have, without passing judgment on whether it's right or wrong, just you will always have an elite group of people that are going to create that narrative that is designed to keep people quiet, essentially, moving in the right direction to keep us strong and prosperous, then we're suddenly seeing how it works. We're suddenly seeing how the sausage is made. And what Eric is railing against is stop fucking lying to me as the government. Stop saying you can't trust me. And we're going to live through that clash right now because there's so many people that have a voice. There's now, with the government trying to eradicate this unelected fourth branch of government known as the deep state, it's all coming up to the surface. And so we're now being asked to confront the realities of how the world works. And this is where I'm like, the third piece of the puzzle is I don't know how this is all going to play out because one, the masses are never going to avail themselves of all this information. So even though it is now increasingly available to them, it is not going to be something that they want to avail themselves of because it's just too much. They're just trying to raise a good family. They're trying to make ends meet. They're trying to love their life. It's a lot. Yeah. And so it's always going to create the opportunity for this opportunity for people to say, sit down, shut up. You don't need to know about this. So that we can control the narrative because they can dangle the thing of this is what is necessary to keep us safe. So it is this incredibly turbulent moment in human history where we can see it happening. We're all talking about it. The only way to stop it is top-down authoritarian control, which certainly Americans, I think, are going to rebel against massively. But what happens to the world when there isn't a singular narrative that we can all get behind? I don't know. That's what we're about to find out. And so there are just so many things happening right at this moment. And we'll get into this later, not the least of which is the disruption that's caused by AI. And so that is going to occupy a lot of people's thoughts. So just to really zoom in on two things. I, for one, believe it is true that you do need men on that wall that will keep us safe, that the world is red in tooth and claw. And you need look no farther than Russia, Ukraine to understand that powerful people will do as they will and the weak will suffer as they must. And so if you are weak, you will find yourself in horrific positions. But some of the things that the strong men on the wall do are going to make us real squeamish and are going to trigger moral outrage. And you need look no further than what's going on in Gaza, which is that playing out in real time of Israel saying, I've had enough. I am the strong man on the wall, and I'm going to let Hamas get funded so that they will attack. And when they do, I'll have the excuse that I need to absolutely smash them with a 2-ton fucking hammer. And we're literally watching it play out. To use my favorite word, fractal, I won't continue that fractal without giving you a chance to poke on anything that hasn't been clear, but it's all happening right now, like right in front of our eyes. And going back to the velocity and volume of information, it's just all there. You just have to audit it.
It's interesting too, because on one side, Mike Benz is unraveling this deeply established, I hate the term deep state, so I'm straying away from it, but like there's this historical pattern of how the government is manipulating and moving in these shadows. And then to your point, we're getting a glimpse finally into what's going on into the past and what got us here, what's happened the last 100, 150 years, et cetera.
1,000, 2,000.
2000.
Like,
I mean, but the CIA was around 2,000 years ago.
No, but the same idea was that's okay. James Burnham, read the fucking book, The Machiavellians. Everybody, if you can hear my voice, please, for the love of God, and don't read it once, read it twice, read it 3 times. James Burnham just lays out the reason it's called The Machiavellians is because Machiavelli wrote the book, The Prince, and I think other things, but that's the one that he's most known for. And when people hear his name, they think of somebody who is really sinister. He was trying to be the first like political scientist and saying, wait, man as political animal is knowable. The things that they do are predictable. And what are those things? And he was using, the scientific method was so early, so he's a little bit clumsy about it, but he was trying to use the scientific method. And so he's saying, okay, all of these things are knowable. The way that people act when they're questing for power, when they're trying to protect themselves, like these are all knowable, seeable, predictable things. So for instance, in terms of how predictable and seeable this is, there have been documents declassified that the US did the exact same thing with Japan because we wanted to enter World War II, but we didn't have a reason. And so to get the US on board with it, they were the government was internally discussing, how do we goad Japan into attacking us? Sound familiar from Israel? So how do we goad Japan into attacking us? They do attack us, and then we go into the war as if it were just this noble thing of like, oh my God, they attacked us. Can you believe it? And now like we have to respond. But we goaded the response. But at the same time, it was the fucking axis of evil, and they were doing truly evil shit. And so should we have gotten into the war? Probably. So it's like, oh God, once you pull all of this into the daylight, it's like, Jesus, this is hard to look at. But the reality is, this is knowable, this is predictable. It was first laid out by Machiavelli himself. James Burnham has made it accessible to a modern audience, and we are fucking watching it play out right now between Putin invading Ukraine because he can, and saw America as weak and that America wasn't going to push back, but he could see them marching NATO right up to his doorstep. And I bet part of it, I am reaching inside his mind, and I'm not a mind reader, but boy, does this all feel accurate. That he's like, no, I also want historic USSR countries reunited. I want to bring them back together. And so you've got that blended with, you guys are fucking crossing a red line, and I'm going to go for it. And then again, Israel with freakish parallels to what the US did with Japan. And it's like, that's what's going on with US aid, is the US government is playing 90-degree chess, and all these shell games of moving dollars through one place to another to confuse the president, to confuse the public, to get like a gazillion little pet projects pushed across the line, governments destabilized, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But when it comes home to roost and you start fucking with the American public or your whatever country, your own people are going to squawk. And when you've got a democracy and you have a Bill of Rights that allows for freedom of speech, you get this moment.
How do you rectify that? How would you help like our community, our audience understand what to do with this information? Because it seems like it's a wave of information and it helps. It hurts us. It hits our, like inflation is hitting our pockets. So we see the downstream effects. But after learning this information, like, what do we do with this? It just seems like it's going to be a blip in the news cycle. But like, should we abolish these national intelligence agencies? Is it a net good? Is it a net bad? Like, where do you actually land with the impacts and ramifications of these policies and what US aid has been used for?
Okay, I don't know yet. So here's how I interface with the world. I spend a lot of time thinking about something, and then eventually the opportunity to capitalize on that understanding of how the world works will present itself. So I'll give you an example. COVID hits. I have 1,000 former employees that grew up in the hood. I, with my understanding at the time of how the world worked, which is still to this day wildly incomplete, everybody's is, I think, none of them have savings. They're all living paycheck to paycheck. They're going to get obliterated. They're going to lose their jobs, and they are literally going to struggle to make ends meet. And so I'm like, I have to start making financial content to help them. Literally, that's what was in my mind. Financial content starts outperforming everything else. And I was like, huh? Like, I thought I was speaking to people that grew up in the inner cities that didn't understand the basics of money. All of a sudden, I realized, wait, money is far more complicated than I thought. And I make financial content for, it's been almost 5 years now. Just yesterday or the day before, I had a call with my money managers. And it was the first time where I was like, I understand now enough about how all of this works with inflation and all of that. Now I'm telling them, okay, invest in this, move money here, based on all the knowledge that I've been accumulating over the last 5 years. Now, that wasn't what I set out to do. That wasn't what I would have said would be my ultimate prediction of how that information was going to play out. But I formed a worldview that had enough predictive validity that now I feel confident enough. I'm still cautious, and nobody should look at my portfolio and go, oh, that must be right. But it's now playing out in ways that I couldn't have predicted when I first started. So that's going to be the same with, as I begin to map man as political animal, the easy ways that it shows up, I will be far harder to manipulate the next time the government goes for, hey, everybody, there's a new viral outbreak and we've got to do this. Or, hey, everybody, for our safety, we've got to clamp down on AI, whatever. Like it allows me to think through their motives. Let's take Trump. I'm extremely excited by what he's doing. This all feels right to me. But because of everything I know from Burnham and just watching all this stuff play out and you see all these patterns repeat, I'm like, oh, he is man as political animal. He's motivated to acquire power, to keep power. So when he starts saying like, oh, we're going to control Gaza, I'm like, that's a red flag for me. So despite the fact that I voted for him, despite the fact that I'm excited about some of the things that are happening, I understand man as political animal. I know not to be on his team. I know to look at every decision through the lens of what is man as political animal. So I don't know how that's going to manifest. Will it manifest me making financial decisions? Will it manifest as me making decisions on where I live? Like, I'll tell you one thing that's been in the back of my mind for a while. I do not like how much of my money is tied up in property. So this is one of those things that's just been slowly cooking in the back of my mind. Why? Because now I'm less mobile. So I have way too much wealth tied up in property, which is the one thing I can't take with me. So if a government starts acting a fool and I want to change states, or God forbid, which I do not have any vision of me ever leaving America, but having property here, if I had to, on short notice, you just forfeit that essentially. So had I known 5 years ago what I know now, I never would have put so much money in property. So that's one of the, so this is not me saying, oh guys, I see everything clearly and just do as I say. That I will never be useful to people like that. In fact, Mike Benz had a great quote in the interview with Rogan. He said, I'm showing you the stars in the sky. You have to draw your own constellation. So I'm a little bit different than that. And what I'm trying to do with this show is say, here are the stars that I see and here are the constellations that I'm drawing. I don't know that they're right. And I think other people should also talk about what constellations they're drawing. And then over time, that will play out in some useful way that as of today, I can't predict.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm curious to see how it plays out because there's a new sense of transparency being shown to the government, and I'm sure that's making a lot of people uncomfortable.
I mean, it is for sure if you've made money off of it all being hidden.
Yeah,
for sure.
Or
like
if
think
you
about
hid crimes, you hid motives. Like it's not money is a big part of it, but there's a lot of other things that's just corruption, abuse, weight. Like,
is there anything other than money and power?
I'm religious, so I think of like morals, and I just think of like being a good person. Like there's a bunch of that gray area
two
stuff.
different things.
Yeah.
What I'm talking about is on a grand. Are you opening my mind right now to an obvious element of humanity? Yes, that's not where I was headed. I mean, at a global scale, what people pursue. Man as political animal pursues those things, but man as political animal is not the only way to look at humans, which is what you are very rightfully pointing out. Yes, not what I was talking about, but excruciatingly valid. We'll get back to the show in a second, but first, let's talk about something that's on everybody's mind. The dollar is not what it used to be. The markets are more unstable than ever with way too many variables changing at once, and if you're paying attention, you know traditional investment strategies might not be enough anymore. That's why I want to tell you about today's sponsor, American Alternative Assets. They specialize in helping investors diversify with gold, a nice, finite, inflation-resistant physical asset that's preserved wealth for thousands of years. Now, what stands out about American Alternative Assets for me is how simple they make it. You can transfer or even roll over funds from your existing retirement accounts, 401ks or IRAs without selling your assets. No taxes, no penalties. If you're ready to explore gold as a part of your investment strategy, call 1-888-615-8047 or go to tomgetsgold.com. Again, that's 1-888-615-8047 or just visit tomgetsgold.com. This is a paid advertisement. Now, back to the show.
Well, we go from a shady past to an unknown future because Sam Altman is actively trying to break it. So
can I cheer for your transitions? They're getting better by the day, Drew.
I'm trying.
These. I like these.
So Sam Altman released like an updated roadmap. He is kind of scrapping this whole like pick your model type format business like offering, and instead just going straight to we're releasing these two models next year, and then after that it's going to be kind of a unified brand. But I think not necessarily how he's releasing his models, but what his North Star is. And he talked about it in this clip. So let's jump into it.
The progress over the recent scale is quite amazing. Our very first reasoning model was like a top 1/1,000,000th competitive programmer in the world. People thought that was very impressive. It's like, wow, an AI, it's, the millionth best people that do this. That's pretty good. We then had a model that got to like top 10,000. O3, which we talked about publicly in December, is the 175th best competitive programmer in the world. I think our internal benchmark is now around 50, and maybe we'll hit number 1 by the end of this year. So that's like an amazing rate of scale for more compute in this new paradigm, and we don't see any signs of that stopping.
Man, so he's basically saying they were the 50th best competitive programmer internally, and he's aiming to be the number 1 best competitive programmer by the end of this year, which is crazy. Last year they were in the thousands, and now they're number 1 rate of scale. Like, this AI thing is happening. It's here.
Yeah, this is a rate of change. So elsewhere he said that it was a 300% annual improvement.
Wow.
So 200% is exponential growth. That means that we're beyond exponential. This is a rate of change that's going to cause a problem. So when you and I were prepping for the episode, and by the way, shout out guys, we now go live during our episode prep. So join us on Twitch or YouTube. But the rate of change is going to be traumatic. Trauma is the right word. And this is for sure the kind of thing that's going to lead to, at a minimum, pockets of violence. People are going to panic. This is going to get weird. Now, I will caveat by saying people are always going to be surprised that then I'll put out a short where I'm just hyping AI. As an act of faith, I believe that we will get on the other side of this and it will be wonderful. I don't think it makes sense to look at an increase in intelligence and say that's a bad thing. We want that. We should pursue it. But the rate of change, man, is just crazy. So I will remind everybody of a very important stat. Einstein is 2.4 times smarter than a moron. So when you have 300%, when you go from in the span of like 3 years, you go from the millionth best coder to the best competitive coder in the world in 3 years, from a millionth to first, dude, that's crazy. Insane. So what that's going to mean for the world is just an absolute gutting of the jobs. So in coding, let's just stick with that. I'll guess in the next 5 years, it's probably going to be a lot faster. In fact, what am I saying? At 300% rate of growth in 2 years, 90% of people coding now just will not be coding anymore. Either Sam is wrong about the rate of improvement, or 90% of coders will be gone. So what do you do with that? So somebody that joined us in the live said, what do you do when for the last however many years people have been saying go into computer science because that's how you make a phenomenal living? Parents have pushed their kids to go into that. And now in the next 2 years, 90% of them are going to lose their jobs. That's life. This is what happens. And I would like to say that, call this an evolutionary force. Evolution does not care about any generation. It just doesn't. It cares about the long run blindly, in that things are getting better and things will be better on the other side of this. But somebody who's, let's say, 40 right now, and they've spent their whole life as a coder, they got a lot of life to live, and they're not going to be able to do it as a coder, at least not in the current paradigm. Now, you've heard me talk about this a lot, but I think big corporations shatter into a gazillion solopreneur companies. And so the right response to all this is not to panic. It's to figure out how you leverage it to your advantage. Mm-hmm. Like, I think about this a lot, man. I used to think I had to make all these millions of dollars before I could tell the stories that I want to tell. Not true. In a year, 2 years, you will be able to make certainly a Hollywood scale quality short by yourself, one person, literally one person. In 5 years, you'll be able to do a Hollywood length, quality, everything. One person, man, that is, again, a rate of change. As I said in the intro, if Hollywood is the canary in the coal mine of the rate of change, that canary is about to be dead.
Yeah. Speaking of Hollywood, we actually have a producer. We have a clip from one of a reality show producer. He's going through it already.
The American entertainment industry is dying. I struggled about making this post, but I think it's time for me to voice what's really happening behind the scenes in Hollywood. A lot of people have been asking me, well, Patrick, what's your next project? What's your next project? And I'll be honest with you, I haven't worked since spring of last year, and there has been no project since. After I wrapped my last show, Fight to Survive, and we saw the strikes looming for the writers, we thought, okay, this will be a lot like 07, 08. Since reality or unscripted television is typically non-union, we usually pick up the slack when the unions, like the Writers Guild and the Actors Guild, are doing their negotiations. And we expected this to happen last year, but it didn't. Since studios are run by corporations now, as opposed to executives who used to champion shows or support creativity or the artistry behind making television, that's just not how it goes anymore. It's slashing budgets across the board. From what I understand, the networks have simply run out of money. They all tried to adopt the Netflix streaming platform, get rid of advertisers, and work on just solely a subscription-based model, and that just killed revenue streams. In short, there's no money to make television shows anymore, or at least not in the United States. We've seen a lot of outsourcing out of the country. There's actually a show that's going to be about San Francisco Asian gangs. They filmed it in Cape Town, South Africa. San Francisco is just 300 miles north of LA. Some people think this is revenge from the corporations for workers actually trying to unite and get what they want. But no matter what the explanation is, there's just simply no work out there. And it is crushing entertainment workers.
They're getting crushed. And for context, he released this in February 2024. So imagine what he's going to sound like in February 2026, 25, yeah. 27. Like,
oh, no. By then it will just be so self-evident that everybody is making their own stuff. I am now, as the CEO of Impact Theory, I am now generating content by myself, just doing prompts, shooting video on my phone. And look, it's not good enough yet, but whoa, when I look at what I can do, like really, I'm talking like in 3 minutes. You can make a shot where AI is integrated with your real footage and it looks 80% of what you would expect from a seamless piece of like CGI content. Mm-hmm. Now it's only 80%, but in 3 minutes, like it's insane. And it is, if 300% rate of improvement is to be believed, by 27, dude, it's it's game over for content creation. Now, in fact, let me say it another way. All of you out there that have ever wanted to make your own stuff and you've run into gatekeeper after gatekeeper, it all goes away. All those gatekeepers are gone. So it will be like TikTok or Instagram, YouTube now, where it's anybody can create. And so it just becomes a question of how creative are you? Are you able to capture people's imagination? And so you have to, like, it really only gets scary once you start talking about disaggregation of capital. And I don't actually think that that is a only net positive. I think that there are going to be some real downsides to that. So the only thing I can't clearly see is, will there just be a huge bifurcation where you get gigantor creators like a Mr. Beast who do still aggregate a ton of capital, plus then a gazillion little people who make just, you know, the bulk of your feed. You can only watch so many Mr. Beast things. That I don't know. I don't know if that top will happen, or if it's just going to be AI itself gets so good at generating this that you just set up an account that's all AI generated and it puts out a certain amount of stuff every day. The algorithms are certainly going to change. So they're going to know how to read AI created stuff. And will content be made for AI or for humans? That's the real question. And I don't know the answer to that yet. We'll see.
Yeah, I definitely think the market is changing. And even now with YouTube kind of becoming a prominent player, where we had a stat that actually didn't make it to the show, but more people are watching YouTube on their TVs than they are on their phones right now. So I think to that point of Netflix kind of killed the NBC network type model. And now I feel like the internet is quickly going to kill the streaming market. And then AI is going to kill the internet. And then before we know it, it's going to be some type of new, you just open up your phone and it's an app and you press it and you can just pick a genre and that's what you watch or something like that. Like, it's going to get hyper focused, hyper essential, specific to you, as opposed to like we're all 300 million people going to see the Avengers. I don't think we're going to get that as much as we used to.
I don't think so. Yeah. I think that the future looks something like this. You open up an app and it's a hybrid story and game where you're the main character, and maybe it interfaces with your friends. It probably will. And you go in there and you're making decisions that have real consequences inside that story/game in a way that is so expansive and is unfolding before your eyes, because you no longer have to create assets, because the AI can just spin it up. And it will do it based on data that it's getting off of your wearable devices, based on your eye tracking. So what you're looking at, which did you hear that Instagram is launching that pinch to zoom? Did we talk about that yet?
Yeah, I haven't been up
So this is absolutely crazy. They're releasing to the public that if you post something and someone does a pinch to zoom on something, it will notify you. So if somebody pinched to zoom to get a closer look at a woman's ass, boom, the creator is going to get notified. Ooh, people like that one. But that's not the real play. The real play is somebody zooms in on your sweater, and now I know, ooh, I need to make more of those because people are really taking a look at that thing. And so companies are going to use that data. But also from this entertainment perspective, the AI is going to be able to read what you're looking at, what you engage with, what kinds, like, what adventures does it send you on that you are most engaged with? And by the way, do you like a different style of game in the morning than you like later in the afternoon? When do you want to be passive? When do you want to be active? And it's just all going to be happening in real time. Now, something like that is going to take a while. That's outside of that 3-year window, just because people are going to have to discover the ways that this stuff works and build all that. But that, when I look into like what's the future of entertainment sub 10 years, it's that.
Wow. There's a lot happening. There's a lot happening. I feel like it's just kind of splitting up. But I do think that what you said resonates with me the most, is that I'm at least happy that the gatekeepers are now out the way. And I mean, they torpedoed it. They being forcefully removed at this point from AI. But at the same time, the people who do want to create, I think they should still be optimistic. They should still be hopeful, because now it's your idea. If you're a really good writer and you want to like create into a book, you can do that right now, 100% for free. And if it hits with people, you can publish it to the masses. Like, there's no more, only Simon & Schuster can let me get a book deal. Yeah. You know what I mean? So they're removing that with movies. We're removing that with music. Like, so it's just another wave. Usually there's going to be a time where we remove that with TV shows, and we'll be able directly to publish and stuff like that too. So,
where this gets interesting is right now you can still create a moat. So Mr. Beast, the only gatekeeper was, does YouTube censor his content? He could do whatever he wanted. But he's now created a moat because he can spend so much more on a video because he makes so much every time he launches a video. But once there is no like production costs and you can create anything that's engaging, now you're gonna like, people will have a viral hit and then they might not be able to get attention again for God knows how long. And so that's the part that I worry about. Like, how do people end up having enough stability that they can make a predictable living? Because humans do not like change. And so this kind of rate of change is...
Don't we deal with that now, though? Because there's a bunch of people who had a really viral TikTok where they did that one crazy thing. So now they keep trying to do that same crazy thing over and over, and it's just kind of stair steps.
For sure. Yeah. But imagine that, one, you've got to be able to take time off to do that. And so there's only so many people that are going to be able to do that. And imagine that you can spin. So moat number one, do I have the time to learn this, to build a channel, all of that? Whereas now you're going to be, one guy is going to create, I mean, let's be really downplaying it. One person will create 100 channels that are all AI generated. So it's a workflow of AI, and he's just looking for the one that garners the most views the fastest. The algorithms are all going to, it doesn't matter how many followers you have, it just matters how people respond to that content. And so if you can spin up effectively infinite number of channels to test content, and all that content is being generated based on an algorithm that you yourself write that says, okay, you create a feedback loop, create a piece of content in this style, go over here, turn that still into a video, post that video on this with the copy generated from this AI. And I mean, ultimately it'll all be integrated. And then watch for which one gets the most views, figure out what the pattern is, make that piece of content better. And so now it's like, is that fulfilling from a human creativity standpoint? So this is where, just again, I will come back to, the rate of change is such that just when you wrap your mind around how something works, it doesn't work that way an hour later. I mean, it's, when I think about YouTube, I've been on YouTube now for 8 or 9 years, and it's changed so much. People respond to me like I'm 95 and I've been doing YouTube for 50 years. And it's really crazy the way people refer to me as an elder statesman. And when I think about how much it's changed in those 8 or 9 years, it was manageable. I could feel the changes. You reinvent yourself, you do something different. It all feels like you can keep up. It won't.
Man, we shall see. We shall see. Heading into international news now, Trump sounds like he might be okay with giving up some of Ukraine's land to Russia. Let's get a quote.
Do you see any future in which Ukraine returns to its pre-2014 borders?
Well, I think Pete said today that that's unlikely, right? It certainly would seem to be unlikely. They took a lot of land, and they fought for that land, and they lost a lot of soldiers. But it would just seem to me, and I'm not making an opinion on it, but I've read a lot on it, and a lot of people think that that's unlikely.
And of course, people are going to say this is Trump saying that they should keep it and kind of attribute it to him. But break this down for us.
So one, I assume when he says they, that he's talking about Russia, that Russia fought for it, lost soldiers, so they're not going to give it up. All right, this is where we'll see. I'm expecting people to try to make this into Orange Man bad, and he's saying that, you know, Russia earned that land or whatever. I think here he's putting forward a behind the scenes look at what it's like negotiating with Russia. And Russia is saying, look, fought for that, people have died for that, and the odds that we're going to give that back are essentially zero. And Trump is trying to get to the end of the war. So that's my instinct. And to be honest, watching him, because he cannot help himself from talking. So there's a great quote. I don't know who said this originally, but when we speak, we cannot help but reveal ourselves. And when Trump speaks, he gives away so much about what's going on behind the scenes. And it is a really fascinating look at power politics. And as somebody who is obsessed with getting an understanding of how the world really works, this is how business negotiation works. This is obviously how political negotiations work. You find your point of leverage, and you play that point of leverage to get as much as you can. And so if he's back channeling, trying to broker this, he's saying a lot of this stuff out loud to get people used to the idea that, look, Ukraine is not going to have everything they want. He knows that Zelensky's listening to this. And I know Zelensky said something like, whoa, no negotiation should be happening without me present. Good luck with that. It's just not going to play out that way. Trump is in a way more powerful position than Zelensky by a country mile. And so he's going to do whatever he thinks is in America's best interest, whatever he thinks is actually going to end that war with or without Zelensky. And given that Putin could stop the war instantly, but Zelensky couldn't, the power is with Putin. And so you're going to go and you're going to talk to Putin. Now, of course, he's going to want to involve Zelensky, because if Zelensky can't get his people behind this, then you could have years of frozen conflict where essentially you have an insurgency coming from the Ukrainians and just constant never ending, like Gaza, Palestinians and Israel going back and forth. You don't want to create that kind of frozen conflict, but nonetheless, like, you go where the power is. And so watching this, there's going to be a lot of people that want to look at this through the lens of morality. And I get that. I get the impulse, but this is where this is the law of the jungle. And because we've had 70 years of visible peace in the West, behind the scenes, a lot of crazy immoral shit was happening, but it felt to the average person like, oh, this is like a good time, peaceful, people are acting honorably. We lost sight of the fact that this is, I have hammer, I can smash you, I will smash you, I will take your things. We forgot that that's what humans are the product of. Yeah.
It's interesting. Way back when, I used to sell vacuums at Sears. And I remember, like, one of my coworkers always used to be like, you know, you could pitch them, you could get them to like a certain point, but if it's like a husband and a wife, you gotta sell it to the wife, but persuade the husband or something like that. So it kind of feels like that with this Ukraine-Russia war, where it's like, yeah, Zelensky is the president and he should be in the negotiations, but like, we carry the purse strings, we've been sponsoring this, so it's like, I'll come and let you know what we decide type thing. So that didn't bother me as much, that he's negotiating by himself, but I think that at this point we all want a resolution to it, and with what Trump is doing in other places of the world with these terrorists that we're supposed to break our economy, but somehow other countries are caving in, I think he's just trying to keep that same effort going. So we'll see what happens with Zelensky and if he's okay with the deal that they ultimately end up making. But that actually brings me to my next thing, because Hamas is not okay with the deal that Trump made in the Middle East and has officially rejected his 12 o'clock release deadline. They were quoted saying, "The language of threats has no value and only makes things worse." So do we think we're going to see some blowback after this deadline is passed?
I mean, it certainly sounds like it is, but that is a pretty ahistorical quote. The language of threats is precisely what people use. And if you know that they can back it up, then, and I mean, look, okay, let's say that I'm Hamas. I get it. If you really believe you are right and you have God on your side, and you are going to crush anyone that attempts to stop you, of course, you're not going to back down easily. But you've just watched, I mean, I don't know what percentage of the countries actually turned to rubble, or sorry, it's not a country, the territory, the land, however you want to think of it, Gaza. I don't know what exact percentage it is that's been turned to rubble, but it's devastating. And you now, let's say that you make a move and you say, fuck you, we're going to start killing hostages. So you broke the ceasefire and we're going to start killing hostages. And they have, it's like 76 or something like that. Everyone you kill, you're just incentivizing the far greater powers to come in and just finish the job. So again, morality goes out the window. They will have a cover story to say, this is why we keep doing it. We had a deal. They violated the deal. America, we have your support. And that's going to give them all the cover they need with like the UN and all that. Because if I'm not mistaken, America can effectively veto any sanctions that the UN wants to put on Israel. And so this is where I'm like, this is essentially their veiled threat that you guys are going to make it worse. And it's like, all they can do at this point is continue insurgencies, which they are certainly, they've been weakened tremendously, and or kill all the hostages. And so it's like, you have a card, because people are going to care a lot about getting those hostages back. But if you play that card, Jesus, man, this is what they did for October 7th. Now, when you have a deadline and you don't meet it, even if Israel and America are the ones that broke it, if you start killing hostages, yikes.
And for context, the Palestinians are saying, or Hamas is saying, that the reason they are going against releasing the hostage is because they're claiming that Israel has broken the ceasefire. But I don't know, man. I'm on like a Paramount kick, and maybe I'm watching too many like Mayor of Kingstown. But there was a point where I got it like a month. So when I get these subscriptions for a month,
watch it
I'm
all.
binging everything. So I did like 3 shows deep now. So there was a scene in that show where like the prisoners took over the jail, and then there was a point where they're like in negotiations. There's military tanks outside, but the prisoners was like, the message isn't escape. Like, I'm not trying to leave, but you're going to feel what we felt. And then they just started killing people. Everybody's dead. So it's one of those things now from Hamas's perspective. Like, I mean, yeah, you could say no to the deadline. The hostages are leverage, but there's going to come to a point where it's like, it's just going to be death. It's just going to be like a body. So like, I don't know what message they're trying to do. You can wag your finger at Israel all you want. Israel has kissed the ring. They got Trump in their pocket. You can argue with the AIPAC and their funding tactics, but Hamas has no leverage, it seems like to me. We talk about negotiations and strategies a lot. It seems like it's just they're looking to just make this a big suicide mission. So I'm hoping it doesn't get that dark. But
well, I think it's already that dark.
Yeah.
And terror works. And so they will use that. And that, I mean, the real thing to watch out for, and unfortunately I don't see any restraint on behalf of Israel for sure. We'll see about the US, but I don't see any restraint based on long-term consequences. What I see, oh God, this is where I hate watching history because this is just going to sound horrible. What I see is a replay of America and the Native Americans. And dude, that was truly, if you want to hear gruesome shit, just read about the conquest of the American West. Yo, like the nastiest shit on both sides, where obviously we were slaughtering Native Americans like wholesale, and Native Americans were killing settlers like lickety split. Like some of them, the Comanches were gnarly. And you read about it and you're just like, God damn. But still, if one power is way the fuck stronger, ultimately they just hope go smash. And given how much of Gaza they have already smashed, they've shown they're just going to keep going. Yeah. And so when you had America that was sort of, oh God, I don't know how we feel about this. You had some play, but at least for the next 2 years, not so much. So anyway, the long-term play is going to be insurgencies. If you drive Palestinians into Jordan, into Egypt, what do? Do they attack internally and go after Jordan and Egypt, which is obviously why Jordan and Egypt are so hesitant to bring them in? Do they find other ways to go after Israel? Do they draw Iran into this? Because let's not forget, this still could escalate, but this is why the U.S. is trying to weaken Iran so that Iran can't be a player in this whole thing. So yeah, this is real power politics playing out.
Yeah, well, somebody's going to have to do something because Saturday at 12 o'clock is tomorrow. So we shall see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, let's pray for a stalemate because I'd much rather that than just about anything else I can think of.
100%. And last but not least, friend of the show, RFK
Let's
is official.
go.
He got confirmed.
Look at that. Is that really him walking in after? Oh, okay. This is the hey, by the way, AI, this is literally what you can do. This is so crazy. I love it. I was like, man, he was walking in with some swagger. Yeah. Brought to you by AI, boys and girls. Brought to you by AI.
Yeah, but it's official. So I'm excited about that. We were joking with the live stream earlier. He already has kind of started the banning of like red dyes and like red 3. I think the FDA has officially banned. Lynn is in love with Takis.
You're gonna have to tell people who Lynn is, otherwise they're gonna be like,
oh, Lynn, yeah, my daughter. That's why you got to join the community, guys.
There it is.
Hit
Let's
the
go.
live stream, hit the comments. We talk about our families and stuff like that. You would have heard Tom's amazing onesie story. I'm not gonna make him tell it now. You got to be on the live stream.
That's exactly right.
No, but yeah, she like loves Takis. Every time she eats it, it's blue and red all over her face. And I'm like, that's paint on your face. And she's like, no, it's not. I'm like, oh, well, let's read the ingredients. And I turn it over and I ask her what all these things are. So I'm very excited for us to have like
RFK would be very proud of you, Dad.
Yeah, I went to McDonald's in London last year, and it actually was good. I felt a little bit better. I mean, it's not good food, but
I was gonna say, wow,
it felt way different.
I've eaten at McDonald's in London. I don't know if I'm going all the way to it's good, but
it tasted different. I was like, oh snap, maybe I am getting poisoned by my country. Like I thought that was all like hype, but I don't know. Do you have a favorite junk food you're like over? You're super,
do I
super
have a
like,
favorite junk food? Yes. So somebody in the comments, please tell me what the batch number is. But there is it's like batch 46. It is a licorice, a black licorice made in Australia that I was so into for a while. I was importing it myself in like these gigantic boxes. When my dad and I were there, I found it. I don't randomly, it was just like, oh, let me try it. And because I like black licorice.
Importing black licorice is diabolical.
Dude,
That's
I
crazy.
paid more in shipping fees than I paid for the actual licorice. But the problem is I really don't eat a lot of sugar. And so I stopped. But yeah, that, if I was really going to say that, and Cold Stone ice cream, but talk about things I almost never touch. But this is, if I'm really honest, partly because of health, but mostly because I can't game if I eat sugar because it makes my hands hurt.
Really?
So yeah, welcome to my age. Plus my mom has similar problems with her hands. So I found that if my diet is not just clean when I game, then my hands start to ache, and not like in an okay way, like a this is not fun way. So over Christmas, where normally I would go ham, I had to choose between gaming and eating junk food, and I chose gaming.
Nice. Look at that.
So
yeah, and that's why Kaizen is looking as it is right now.
There it is, everybody. Project Kaizen. It's free to play.
That's all I got.
All right, everybody. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe and join us when we go live on Discord and YouTube. I said Discord. Head to our Discord to find out the schedule for Twitch and YouTube at Tom Bilyeu. All right, everybody. Till next time, be legendary. Take care. Peace. Here is the brutal truth about scaling. Most entrepreneurs don't outright fail, they plateau. And if you're stuck right now, you know how true that is. It could be that your revenue flatlines every time you step away, or maybe you're trapped in a commodity market that's racing to the bottom, or maybe you're one of the lucky people who is navigating a very complex partner dynamic that turns every decision into a battle. These problems and a whole lot more can seem impossible until you break them all down into first principles. My partners and I used this thinking to grow Quest Nutrition by 57,000% in our first 3 years alone and scale to $1 billion exit. And now I'm teaching this framework to a select group of entrepreneurs who are ready to scale. Now, I want to be clear, this is not for everybody because I'm looking to work with serious entrepreneurs that already have an established business and a proven track record of execution. If that's you and you want to learn how to break through your biggest business bottlenecks using first principles thinking, be sure to apply now. Just go to impacttheory.com/scale or click the link in the show notes. Again, that's impacttheory.com/scale. If you like this conversation, check out this episode to learn more. JD Vance puts the global AI community on notice. Elon and Sam prove high school drama never ends. Doge and Trump apparently want smoke with the judiciary. The media is stuck in a constitutional crisis dialogue loop. The US cold civil war continues to heat up.